and as a country. If there's any confusion at this point as to the danger of this coronavirus, I think it's been proven on the news. It sounds a little bit more dangerous than the flu. It sounds a little bit more not as controlled because we know more about the flu. But it sounds a little bit worse, but I don't think we're all going to die. I do think we know what we're doing. I think doctors know what they're doing at this point. And I think if the rich people don't hoard everything like the testing supplies, then I think the rest of us will be fine. I was watching Stacey Morgan, a comedian, and he was talking about, he heard about, he's staying in place in his home, and he had a beautiful aquarium behind him, one of those wall-size aquariums. And he was talking about this tiger at the zoo that tested positive for coronavirus. And so he started, and I'm sure he was joking, but he started saying, yes, I'm going to get my animals tested, my dogs, my cat. He even wants to get his sharks tested for coronavirus. That's when you know he was just kidding. But you think about it. There are a lot of liberal elites who are sitting at home in posh surroundings who can afford to get testing, to get that chloroquine stuff, to get everything that they need brought to their door. The rest of us, if something happens like that, we have to go to the hospital, maybe get contaminated with somebody else's disease. But yeah, they have that option. So I kind of getting sick and tired of seeing people in these posh situations, very posh, saying, oh yes, I'm staying at home. Look at what a good American I am. I'm staying at home. Oh, well, you have a wine cellar. I just have a little wine refrigerator. That's all I've got. So I'm just thinking, yeah, if I had a wine cellar, and I do have a freezer of food, but if I had a wine cellar and a freezer of food, I could stay hunkered down for a couple of years. But as it is, my refrigerator only holds 30 bottles of my favorite wines. And so now I wanted to ask people, if you do comment on Kathy's Right discussion and conversation and support on Facebook, because that's where I go immediately after my show. I go and check and see what's going on and if anybody listened. So if you do have something to say, I would love to hear it. And I hope that we're all taking care of ourselves. I think that a lot of times when you're home a lot and you don't go out, you kind of forget to comb your hair, maybe brush your teeth, maybe tweeze the eyebrows or whatever. But those things become important. I saw myself in the mirror yesterday and I about screamed. I'm like, it was frightening. I said, oh my gosh, who is that? I'm so glad. I'm so glad nobody saw me. And, my poor husband, he's in love. I mean, this man says I look beautiful when I know I look like Don King sometimes. My hair is sticking up, no makeup. Oh, you're beautiful. I'm like, Either he's blind or he's just still really in love, because, yeah, that's my husband. Thank God for him. Or maybe God makes him go blind a little bit on purpose as we age. Who knows? That might be the reason for the whole thing. But the longer the shutdown, the more time the socialists are going to have to make changes and slide in some creepy things. They're already talking about another stimulus package with another big bonus. You saw how they put the pork in this last one, the Kennedy Center and whatnot. And you saw how they did that. They put a lot of pork in there, a lot of Green Deal things that nobody really needs or wants except for AOC and the Squad. And the Squad is already getting ready for this next stimulus thing, or they're going to add it to this one. But I was reading yesterday that the Squad, they're planning on putting something in the stimulus package so that they pay illegal aliens, that they get cut a check too. Now, just hold on a minute. We just got it slowed down, illegal immigration, which is a detriment to our safety and our health, because drugs come through there too. We were really making a big dent, and this pandemic came, and then even Mexico began to guard its borders, which slowed it down. But Mexican cartels live in Mexico too, so it's not going to come to a complete halt. I'm sure better than nothing to slow it down, don't you think? So we just slowed it down, and now the squad wants to put something in there that will reel in more illegals. Let's cut you a check if you get here. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Our tax dollars are going for all sorts of nonsense all over the world. We're paying for people that hate us. And now we're going to incentivize people coming into our country illegally. It was bad enough that we were doing the welfare thing. I know California is notorious about that. They are so good at giving welfare that they have the biggest homeless population in the country because they're just so good at it. And I remember, because I lived in California for 26 years, there were people who came to California just because they had such an easy to get into welfare situation. And they would get Section 8, food stamps, everything was paid for. All they had to do was take a class at a community college, one class, and they got all of these benefits. So people specifically moved to California to abuse the system. And if Americans could do it, and those coming through the borders of Mexico are doing it. And I'm not talking about Mexicans anymore, because most of them that are coming in right now are coming from Central and South America. Mexico was just letting them go through, kind of, here you go. And then Trump said, no, you're going to have to watch your borders, because they have to cross two borders before they get to the United States of America. Your southern border and then our southern border. And the fact that they get through yours so easily and you just sort of send them through, that's got to stop. That's why I love our president. Why didn't somebody do that before? Why didn't any American president put their foot down before? And especially now, because all those positions, those jobs that Americans thought they were too good to do, they're going to be available, and people are going to be hungry, and nobody wants to go without food. I know this is something that Americans, we need to take a look in the mirror about jobs and inner cities. And inner cities are the worst places for people to be poor, because in the inner city, there's no place to get a low-level paying position, like working in the fields, like picking strawberries and avocados off of trees and oranges. Americans could do those jobs, but I think a lot of us think that we're too good for that. And I think that's the problem. Why are we too good for that? Why? That creates this vacuum for illegals to come in. It's almost like they're necessary, because Americans think, I did a news program years ago about this, about people who were on welfare. And, I heard more than once, I'd say, this was a generational family thing. And I wanted to know why, the mother was on welfare and then the daughter was on welfare and she was having a baby and her baby was going to be on welfare. And it was a generational thing, and it was creepy and frightening. And the response I got from two different people in two different families when I did this report, and it was back in the early 80s, they said, well, what do you want me to do, work at McDonald's? I'm like, yeah. My first job was at McDonald's. That was my very first job. You too good to work at McDonald's? You'd rather sit home and take welfare than work at McDonald's? What's wrong with working at McDonald's? What the heck? My family, my parents were hard workers. My father at one point would have 4 jobs. My mom would have 2 or 3 at some points. And yes, when they moved to Houston from Louisiana, my mother cleaned houses. And she cleaned a lot of houses. Some of the houses weren't even as nice as our house, but she cleaned them. And she worked, and I never knew that we were somehow poor, because I never felt poor. I always had everything that I ever needed and wanted. But my parents were proud people, and proud people work. And they do things sometimes that they don't enjoy. Not everybody's going to have one of those passion jobs, where you don't feel like you're working because it's just so damn fun. Some people actually work for a living to feed their families. So I really wish more Americans would get off this attitude about being too good to do a certain kind of job. Because I know for a fact that if I had to do a certain kind of job in order to feed my children, I'll do that job. Have done it. I remember when my husband and I were younger, and he got laid off before, and I got a job, quick, waiting tables. It was great. I love that job. And I've had important jobs. I've worked at television and movies and all that stuff. And I've had important jobs, but actually by far, that was the most fun job I ever had because I love talking to people. In fact, my boss used to tell me all the time, you talk too long at each table. But I got big tips. And I got huge tips. I had 5 tables and they sat there for at least an hour each. I was going to get at least $10, $15 a tip for that table, even if they only spent maybe $50, $60, because that $10 tip means they really liked you. And I went the extra mile every time because I treat people the way I want them to treat me. So when I'm a big tipper now, because once you've waited tables, you're always going to be a bigger tipper. But yeah, I like that. I like that work. And when I worked at McDonald's, I washed dishes. It was horrible, but it wasn't fun, but I needed the money. So I'm just thinking that America, we really need to take a look in the mirror, especially during this time, and look at ourselves and ask ourselves what's important. What is our purpose? What does God want from us? Not every job is going to be glamorous. Not every job. You can have some. I'm an artist. So in between doing this show and taking care of my home, I paint. Now, an artist can be an artist with 3 different jobs. Most artists have to have other kinds of jobs. That's just something that you do. You do what you have to do. That's what red-blooded Americans do. And this is how we live. We work. And I hope and pray that people hear this. And when they go back to work, I know they're going to appreciate their jobs so much more after this ordeal. So we're all sick of Bill Gates. And, it will be aforementioned the stimulus, the second one. They're talking another $2 trillion and the jobs bailout. And the pork that they're going to put into that one, I think, is going to be the more dangerous of the 2 stimulus packages. It hasn't been said for sure, but it looks like it's going to happen. So I think that the people that are in charge now, we have to watch the bureaucrats because those are the ones that really work for the deep state. They're the ones that are getting paid under the table, and they're the ones that are covering up for people like Epstein and Hillary Clinton and the former FBI chief and all of those people. We still don't know anything about that island. And we don't know, there's a lot that's not being talked about because all they talk about is this coronavirus. Like we would have known so much more about this coronavirus in January had they not been impeaching our president. They were so busy impeaching the president that basically it flooded the news. They didn't talk about anything else. So now the news people are saying, he wasn't concerned. He formed a task force in January. Nobody knew because you guys were busy trying to take him down. Not you guys, but you know what I mean, the media. And that media, they are one and the same as the Democratic Party. Same thing. There's no separation. They're one and the same. They're like one entity. I did a blog a while back. It was called Don't Be Like Eve. And I'm talking about serpents because I don't like snakes. And I just don't like snakes. I don't care how many people will tell me, that's a good snake or that's a bad snake. No, I hate snakes. And if I'm not running from it, I have to kill it because, those are the 2 things, run or kill it. And one time when I was in California, I opened my back door for my kitchen, and on my freshly cleaned Saltillo tile porch was a snake. Now, I didn't know what kind of snake it was. I didn't know if it was a good snake or a bad snake, but it was a snake, and it was preventing me from taking my mop out there because, I had just mopped the floor. And so I take that wooden end of the mop, and I'm hitting the head of that snake. I'm hitting the head. Oh, my gosh. The more I hit it, the more it came towards me. I'm like, the nerve of that thing, I was trying to keep it away from my house, away from, my children were at school. So I kept hitting. Pretty soon, I don't know. I was there for a while. I worked